accessible. It's very user-friendly and it can be done, in like a million different ways.
Sure.
Which I think is great.
Hello, and welcome to Drink a Little Lead with me, your music podcast dedicated to art song. My name is Yite, and today I'm hosting my friend Cooper Kendall to sing with me and talk about 4 German songs from the cycle Die schöne Müllerin by Franz Schubert.
Aus den Erlen heraus, durch Rauschen und Singen bricht Gebraus, bricht Gebraus. Ei willkommen, süßer Müllengesang. Ei willkommen, süßer Müllengesang. Und das Haus wie so traulich und die Fenster wie blank und die Sonne wie helle vom Himmel sie scheint. Die Sonne wie helle vom Himmel sie scheint. Ei Bächlein, liebes Bächlein, war es also gemeint. Ei Bächlein, liebes Bächlein, war es also gemeint. War es also gemeint. War es also gemeint.
Tell us about you.
Okay, my name is Cooper. I'm 26. I'm a musician, obviously. And I recently moved here to Basel to continue my studies and to sort of branch out a little bit, find a new network, and make some new connections. I think there's more going on here for classical music than in the US, so it's a good place for me to be, and I've found some great people already, so it's good. I'm happy with it.
So you did your study in the US before you came here, and tell us some story about that.
Sure. I got my bachelor's in Boston at the New England Conservatory, which was great. Boston's a really great city for students. It was a really great first step for me. I grew up in a very small town, so I think for me to have this sort of middle-sized city first was really great. Then after that, I moved to New York and I studied at the Mannes College of Music, which was also great. I had a great teacher there. And I think it was there that I really started to move towards this lieder art song work more because of the intensity or the pressure that the opera scene really holds. Especially in New York, I felt that there were so many singers that it was just like unimaginable to really even have a career there or establish yourself with a big network of people. And so I really, even though I worked a lot on art song in Boston as well, in New York I really realized that I do prefer doing this, and I find more satisfaction from this sort of a process. New York, in the end of my studies, shut down very abruptly due to COVID. And I spent a little time with my family and a lot of time thinking about these things, what I wanted to do next. And somehow I found myself here, which I guess is really great. Yeah.
What brought you to think to go to Switzerland? I
Uh-huh.
mean, there are plenty of countries in
Yeah.
Europe. There are.
Well, I guess like Europe in general has always had a special importance, I guess, for musicians, and I always heard that to really make it in classical singing, you have to sort of make some sort of attempt in Europe, in order to have a big reputation in the U.S. So I always sort of saw myself making some kind of leap over here. And I have a good friend from the States who's studying here as well now. I came here about 1.5 years ago to do some work with him, and I was able to meet all of the faculty and some of my now peers, and I felt that it was a good fit. It's a good sized city and a good sized school, and there's good opportunities.
How did you get into lead? Like which songs you sing first? I mean, of
Yeah.
course, as singer, you always will have lead as repertoire
Yeah.
training. Do you have any like
Uh-huh,
first
I do.
love? Or
The first big thing was Dichterliebe, and it was
Uh-huh.
recommended to me by my undergraduate teacher. And I think she sort of initially wanted me to try a few songs, and I really just didn't stop. I learned the full thing, and I think within 1 year after that, I had performed it a couple times. And I don't think it was necessarily even the piece itself that really got me hooked, but really the duo and
the form
connection.
itself. Uh-huh.
The connection with the pianist and how much simpler that felt compared to a big production, or having to deal with conductor and stage managers and all these other people. Especially as a young musician, I mean, to be able to have these pieces that you can kind of do anywhere and bring anywhere, as long as you have a few
Your
variables.
partner.
It really drew me in, and I mean, after you study these texts and really get into the language, yeah, I really got hooked, and I really started to find myself relating to these characters and thinking more about these German romantic ideas, and not necessarily how they pertain to my own life, but just how that feels and how that what that really means, I guess.
What's the difference for you between singing opera's character and projecting yourself into leader's character?
Well, I guess it depends. I wouldn't generalize it across the board, because there are a lot of opera characters that I do love and I hope to do down the road. But what I really like is rather than a full story or a much more exaggerated storytelling process, I think in Lied it's more of like a snapshot of what's happening in the moment, or a little picture of like the action, the most important part of the story. Not always necessarily, but it creates more options or more possibilities, because you're always sort of doing something that's very integral to the story. There's not really many songs that are just details. Usually you're singing the action, the real heartbreaking part, or the very romantic part, I guess.
I can relate that to cycles of songs. Like since we start to work on the schöne Müllerin, I start to see how each short songs bring a little parts of action and transition of emotion into the whole storyline, like making puzzles all together, and each part makes things to go on. Yeah, I can relate that. Also, there are many songs are out of cycles, right?
of course.
Do you have any preference of
Uh,
repertoire
Not
choosing?
necessarily. I would never pick one or the other. I think that there's some scenarios where you really want to do a big work. But if you're going somewhere and performing for the first time for an audience that you don't know, it's difficult to draw in a new audience for 30 minutes or an hour or 90 minutes. I mean, it's really difficult and very intense. So I find that when you have different characters with different moods and different ideas, it can be a little easier in an unfamiliar sort of scenario. I think personally, in general, I like the cycles more because you really can dig into these characters and their full story. I think with individual songs, sometimes there's a little bit to be desired, but it really, really depends. And it really depends on the composer as well. Some composers write bigger songs that tell more of a story, and some, like Schubert, write very short, very, very short songs that just give you a little, like I said, picture of what's going on.
Was also gemeint, mein rauschender Freund, dein Singen, dein Klingen? War es also gemeint, war es also gemeint? Zur Müllerin hin, so lautet der Sinn, hab ich's verstanden, zur Müllerin hin, zur Müllerin hin. Hat sie dich geschickt oder hast mich berückt? Das möcht ich noch wissen, ob sie dich geschickt, ob sie dich geschickt. Nun, wie's auch mag sein, ich gebe mich drein, was ich such, hab ich gefunden, wie's immer mag sein. Nach Arbeit ich frug, nun hab ich genug für die Hände, fürs Herze. Voll auf genug, voll auf genug.
Drink a Little Lead With Me is a new project. I love art song for its multi-dimensional beauty in culture, in language, in music, and emotion. I wish to promote art song in a more feel-at-home aesthetic by playing you music, telling you story, and sharing the beauty that we feel. The reason why it is presented as a music podcast. Help Little Lead to go on by buying us a coffee on the page Buy Me a Coffee. You can also buy an extra large coffee to get free download of music tracks of each episode. Thank you very much for listening to this sponsoring message. We will now get back to the podcast. The whole cycle has 20 songs. Am I right? 20 songs. And we chose from the number 3 to number 6, which is a very interesting transition because it's still fresh. It's still the character is still wondering what's gonna happen, and little by little we feel the drama started.
Yeah, the reality starts to kind of set in.
Inside and outside. I mean, mainly inside. It's really.
Yeah, I like
Mm-hmm.
this whole piece.
Yeah.
We talked about this a lot because it's really the story of a young man, and I think especially the story of a young man in this era.
Mm-hmm.
You can imagine, you know, in the early part of the 19th century, if you live in a small village, your life is expected to have a lot of work and not really so much fun or play or whatever you want to call it, and you grow up sort of preparing for this journey that you have to go on to find this work and really find your place in the world. And I think the most difficult part of this would be the romantic element, or the love, that you somehow fit into this schedule. And if you come from a small village or a small town, maybe you only knew 2 or 3 people your age that could sort of fit this role, and if they didn't feel the
Yes.
same way about you, you're out of luck. And in this case, it created a very large problem for this guy. Yeah, so these 4 songs I think are particularly interesting because we see the real initial reaction to finding this place, which is the mill, this very exciting, bustling workplace that he just finds. You know, he just stumbles upon it essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And you really feel the naive young character discovering this sort of new place that really could be the missing piece in life, or could be the next big thing. And I think that's why ultimately it's so tragic, because we see this real excitement, this real joy turn into very bitter, questioning oneself, or doubting, and really looking everywhere for sabotage or some sort of a harm.
True. Yeah.
Which is,
I mean, in number 3, there wasn't this questioning or doubts of oneself
not
too
yet.
much yet.
No, not
But
yet.
at the end of the 3rd song already.
Yeah, we have this line, "War ist also so gemeint?" What does it all mean? And I think in the 3rd song, it maybe has there's a bit of a smile that comes with it. What does it all mean? I mean, this is so new, it's so exciting.
New, so fresh, so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it sort of changes when he discovers this girl, and what does it all mean with her? You know, she's here as well. It's not just about work. Now my heart is also involved.
That we do see already in number 4, right? That
Definitely.
the song is like the character was singing to the river, the brook, and
So I think the brook is obviously a very, very important character here, and just emphasizes, I think, his
like a mirror, you know, when you look into the water, you see yourself. It's kind of maybe
true.
unconscious mirror of
sort of asking himself, but also sort of looking for some answers or something. And I think the brook gives these artificial answers that are just the way nature works. And again, in this time, nature is so important, and it's really the biggest force in your life that you can imagine. So it's not totally out of context to imagine the power that nature could have on this.
But in this song, there's still the hope, kind of.
Yeah.
Because he sings, "Did she send you to me? Did she send you to me?" For me, I interpret like this. It's like he wishes that it's the miller's daughter who sent the river to be with him. You do have a different interpretation.
A little bit. I mean, this middle verse, if you will, strophe, it's in minor, and I think that there's a bit of a looking over the shoulder, sort of wondering, are you really my friend? Are you really here to help me, or are you with her and you're both making a joke out of me? I think there's a case for both. But I think it's nice to draw these sort of jealous things into the character as well. And it comes out in the fifth one, a lot of this kind of jealous
Yes, that's
jealousy
very obvious.
and comparing oneself to the other workers on the mill.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, this is just my interpretation, but it's not set in stone.
For me, the song 5, the number 5, really has the click of the transition into. It's very clear. Like, okay, so before we said there is this. Still being very naive and feeling fresh of thinking someone and little by little transforming into questions. And then in the fifth one is really the jealousy. This is a very clear sign of a love action. And it's so incredible how in this part, where the texting and the beautiful maid just say good night to everybody. When she said good night to everybody, and then 2 times she said good night to everybody. The second time was this Napolitan 6 score, and it's like boom. It's confirmed. I'm in love. What should I do? Yeah, this transition is.
It's very sudden, almost like a little temper tantrum, like he's kind of having a little fit or something. It's something, and I think it's very relatable. I mean, when you're young, your emotions go up and down very quickly, and one minute you're so in love, and the next minute you're so sad or so. So I think it's interesting, and I'm sure that's what Schubert's intention was. I mean, Schubert was by no means an old man even when he died, so I think he was always sort of feeling connected with this idea of the wanderer, the young man out in the world who doesn't really feel like they fit in, always searching for the right place.
In the number 6, it's the first time that he mentioned the words love. I mean, only in the end.
Which I think is also so relatable. Like when you're young, you find what you believe is love, and you don't quit. Like you might get really upset, but the next day you're back where you started, and you're just still so in love and so curious. I mean, so unsure of what it really is. I mean, maybe it still is something good. Maybe it still is my destiny or my fate. And I think it takes another half a dozen songs for him to really take the real turn where he realizes, this isn't going to happen.
Arme zu rühren, könnt ich brausend die Räder führen, könnt ich wehen durch alle Haine, könnt ich drehen alle Steine, dass die schöne Müllerin merkte meinen treuen Sinn, dass die schöne Müllerin merkte meinen treuen Sinn. Ist mein Arm so schwach, was ich übe, was ich trage, was ich schneide, was ich schlage, jeder Knappe tut mir's nach, jeder Knappe tut mir's nach. Und da sitz ich in der großen Runde, freier Stunde. Und der Meister spricht zu allen: Euer Werk hat mir gefallen, euer Werk hat mir gefallen. Und das liebe Mädchen sagt allen eine gute Nacht, allen eine gute Nacht. Hätt ich 1000 Arme zu rühren, könnt ich 1000 Sirenen führen, könnt ich wehen durch alle Haine, könnt ich drehen alle Steine, dass die schöne Müllerin merkte meinen treuen Sinn, dass die schöne Müllerin merkte meinen treuen Sinn, dass die schöne Müllerin merkte meinen treuen Sinn.
What is our song for you?
It's a little hard to define, but I guess for me personally, it's the most accessible form of vocal music, because you really can more or less do what you like with it. There's not so many restrictions per se. I mean, of course, you have to do what the composers wrote, but you can kind of program whatever you like together. You can really create a theme or an idea that is personal to you. And you can basically do it anywhere. I mean, it's definitely for you and I with guitar, it's practically accessible to do wherever is allowed, or what, with a piano it's a little more of a process. You have to have a nice piano and more of a space, but this music is literally designed to be performed in somebody's home or in a this sort of like salon, so it's very accessible. It's very user friendly, and can be done in like a million different ways.
Sure.
Which I think is great.
And what does it mean to you?
Like, what do I take from it, or what do I get from it, or something, you mean?
Yeah, you like singing theater so much. You even come from the States to a faraway country here in Europe just to study this. What is it for you?
Yeah, well...
More personally.
Yeah. Well, I think on a very personal level, it's a connection with others, and it's a way to feel comfortable or more validated in what you feel. I mean, where I come from, it's maybe a little bit frowned upon for men to be emotional or to be connected with certain feelings, and I felt when I went to college and when I started to study these texts, it made me really wonder why do we assign these roles to men and women, and it doesn't really make sense. I mean, obviously these things that we try to these feelings that we try to kind of hide are human, and it really made me feel more confident to sort of explore myself and not feel any sort of pressures. And I think in a big way, being able to pick my own repertoire is really why it had such a big impact on me. It was probably subconscious, honestly, but I was picking repertoire that was speaking to me, Um,
You like the personal expression.
yeah. Well, of course, it's easier to express something that you understand or that you felt before. Um, yeah, yeah. Especially when it's just with one person and you really can customize the experience or the effect. Yeah. Does that make sense? Kind of.
Of course, I mean, anything you say, it's your interpretation, your answer, and yeah.
Okay.
No, it's beautiful. So it sounds like your choice is very emphasized by the text, of course, because I mean, you sing the text, and then this is what you look at. I mean, from my perspective, that wouldn't be the only unique things. I mean, I listen to the melody. I like the titles a lot, and the harmony and the keys also matters to me.
Sure.
I mean, just it's the nature of my instrument and how I can feel the emotion and expression, right? Like through very special modulations or all this connection together. This is
sure, especially with Schubert, he really can send you in a direction that you didn't expect. Yeah. True.
Yeah. I mean, in general, in any repertoire, that would be something that I relate more to connect my personal expression or emotion to the music that I want to use in order to output.
Sure. Yeah, and of course, I definitely do the same. I mean, I think no matter what we play, the priority is sound. I mean, we're putting out a beautiful sound, and I would never, I don't know, people will disagree with me, but I would never say text comes before sound. I think that it's very close. It's not way below or way above, but I do think that, the primary thing that hits your ear is the sound, the atmosphere that the sound can create.
True.
But I mean, I think the nature of these texts is more personal and more, maybe it's just this German romantic style speaks to me more than, let's say, the texts Puccini uses. Not to say that these characters aren't very, very compelling. Yeah. But just on a personal level, I think I relate more to these German romantic characters.
So you do sing a lot of German songs?
Yeah, almost primarily, yeah. Okay,
and how is it for you singing in German?
German doesn't really bother me much. I think in the course of my studies, I studied Italian and French as well as a little bit of Spanish and Russian. Overall, I mean, I wouldn't say German is the easiest, but it's by no means the hardest. And I think that
from the technical point of view, or from.
Well, I think compared to English, which is my primary language, German is perhaps the closest. There's a lot of unique sounds, but for the most part, there's nothing that's very far away from what we do in English. So I think it's pretty.
It's connect better.
Yeah. With French and even Italian, there's certain sounds and certain muscles that they use that we don't use in English, and it's much more challenging. Of course, it depends, but I think German in general is easier for me. Yeah, and there are 100 amazing German singers that I could listen to all day. So I really attribute a lot of my pronunciation insight to these masters. Just from listening to them so much, you pick up these little nuances that you maybe wouldn't even pick up, in these countries. Just because they're so in touch with the text and they really love the text. I think that's a big thing that we lack nowadays is a real interest in the text. I think even German speakers just can't relate to it as much because it's not very modern, it's not very current. I find this especially with Italian repertoire, the text is very hard to relate to oftentimes, and even Italian speakers will just not really love speaking these texts because they just seem sort of outdated. Or
You mean the story in the song isn't something that's or the expression is
or
not really the way that you speak.
maybe the way it's expressed,
Right.
I think is oftentimes seen as sort of unrelatable.
I mean, they are poetries. I mean, our
Of
songs
course.
usually they take poetries,
Of
not
course.
like.
Yeah, I don't know. I just find that singers nowadays, there's something missing with the text.
Right.
They might have a beautiful voice, but it's not. There's something not convincing about it. It doesn't feel true, I guess.
Yeah, indeed, there is the difference between singing very lyrically, but not telling story. Listening to all these German singers over and over, and then because you love listening to this language, I do relate that with French. I mean, French compared to German is still something much more closer to me, and I use it since almost 10 years now.
Yeah.
I do love listening like philosophers talking on interview on YouTube or conferences, and I can listen to that, over and over, or just like poems, readings,
Sure.
such things. And so for me, like French art songs is something that when I play, I hear the text. Playing German song, I have to listen to it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it doesn't come in so spontaneously to me.
Yeah, interesting. I think French has a different style of. It flows in a different way. I think that maybe could be why. I mean, German, the stereotype of German is it has all these very sharp consonants and very abrupt sounds. And that's not really true, but to a certain extent.
No, I don't mean by the nature of the pronunciation, but it's just how one language is close to me, and so I can project better the feelings or pictures or imaginations on from the language. Or even like I'm really, really happy and I'm very touched that I'm able to interpret this text in my way.
Yeah, sure.
In case of playing guitar.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I like that.
I think language does make a huge difference of how we perceive things.
Sure.
Ich frage keine Blume, ich frage keinen Stern, sie können mir alle nicht sagen, was ich erfühl so gern. Ich bin ja auch kein Gärtner, die Sterne stehen so hoch. Mein Bächlein will ich fragen, ob mich mein Herz belog. O Bächlein meiner Liebe, wie bist du heut so stumm? Will ja nur eines wissen, ein Wörtchen Wörtchen, das andere heißt Nein. Die beiden Wörtchen schließen die ganze Welt mir ein. Die beiden Wörtchen schließen die ganze Welt mir ein. O Bächlein meiner Liebe, was bist du wunderlich, will's ja nicht weiter sagen. Sag, Bächlein, lieb sie mich. Sag, Bächlein, liebt sie
I just remember our first rehearsal. I don't know if you do remember that. And the first song was Am Freierabend. I was very surprised. Like I mean, I learned the piece. I know how to play it, you know, but I sort of was expecting a first rehearsal. I just, you know, the first time we played with each other and then go through the thing and then maybe find some ideas. But you were so prepared that you start from the first sounds that you sang was already in the music at the right emotion, and for me it was a huge amount of music qualities. Makes me like immediately okay, I have to give the same amount of the the thing intensity, and so that we can really do things together.
That's nice.
I was very surprised. Yeah.
I mean, this is one of the songs I've done quite a bit, but I think for me, this process is a little different because of my vision, and I don't really depend on scores like other people might.
Right. Yeah. It sounds like the song is already in you, and you can manipulate it as you want, you know. And
which is what it's really all about. I mean, if you have the score here, there's something literally in front of you holding you back from really taking it where it should be taken. And I think I don't want to say I'm lucky, but in this regard I maybe am, because I can make this process a little smoother.
Yeah, I was like, oh my god, this guy is making music. I think that made really the whole difference between a singer with a guitarist, and I don't think that I was playing guitar, you know. I have to give the same amount of intensity in order to be at an equal positions.
I think that's why I mean, I think that's a big part of why I like doing this, because I take it very seriously. I think other singers, they see it as kind of like the younger brother of opera or something. Like it's not the main focus. You don't really need to do it super well. You know, if you do it good enough, that's fine, because it's not the main thing. But I find this music very very strong and very. It impacts me very deeply. So I like to try to, as hard as it is, recreate that for my audience.
Right.
I mean, it's the biggest challenge of all for us, really, but it's an inspiration for me that that I find a lot of other singers don't have with this repertoire, which is fine. I mean, they can do their opera and power to them. But I just have a slightly different approach to it, which I think is maybe kind of unique to me.
Have you played with guitar before? What's the main perception for you?
I have not. I've seen some of my colleagues do this kind of work. I always found it very intriguing because I think that a lot of the sounds of the guitar are closer in nature to the voice, in that it's a more human sort of quality that the sound has. I find that the modern Steinway type piano it's too perfect. It's so smooth, and all the octaves are almost exactly the same in some sense. I find that with the guitar, similar to like a forte piano sort of thing, there's more colors and more characters that can be...
For the articulations or attack of the sounds.
Yeah, definitely. And just within the registers, I think there's more variation in terms of the character, the colors that can be created. I mean, of course, with different pianos, you can create different colors, but with one piano, it's limited, and that's by design. I mean, it's made to be perfectly perfect in every way, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think for what we do, it's a little more convincing in this form.
Okay. Now tell us about your further project, and what do you want to do in Switzerland, and do you have some concrete dates already that you want to promote?
Okay, sure. Well, I mean, I just very recently moved here, so I don't have necessarily any big dates per se. But I mean, if anybody wants to like follow my path, you know, I have Instagram, of course, and I have a website. Yeah, I mean,
we do have this concert on the 14th of May in Hien, which is close to Basel, and we will be part of this Mother Day concert in this festival, Schubert in Hien. And we will be singing and playing Schubert's male choir with 2 tenor and 2 bass.
Yeah, which is so underperformed. I mean, a lot of these... Schubert wrote, you know, thousands of things, and most of them are never done, let alone recorded. And I mean, it's really cool to be able to do this kind of project. It's just not very often done, I guess. I don't know why.
I'm very excited to do that, because cool. I mean, the accompaniment is originally written for piano forte or guitar. Yeah, it's already on the scores. I don't have to do arrangement, and I'm really curious to play the originally written guitar part of Schubert's music. Yeah, looking forward.
Yeah, very cool.
I'm so glad to work with you and have you today in this episode.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy to have been here, and it was a great honor to be the first guest. Well, the first
official guest.
Official or whatever.
More to come.
Sure.
Thank you for listening to us today. In the next episode, I will invite French soprano Gladys Hupsach to sing with me 3 lovely and charming French songs. If you don't want to miss it, subscribe now to my channel. Leave a comment here of how you like this episode today, and share the episode with your friends. See you in the next Drink a Little Lead with me. Ciao!